thanks for joining me for today's live where we'll be discussing everything Kettlebell Sport. So any questions that you have about Kettlebell Sport, anything you want to know about training, about what it is, no question is too silly or too difficult. Feel free to ask me any questions you want about Kettlebell Sport. We're going to give it a minute for people to hop on. So say hi if you're here. Let me know if you know what Kettlebell Sport is, what questions you have today, and whether you think we should set a goal in the chat. Sometimes the goals work out, sometimes they don't. I think they're kind of fun, but you let me know in the chat. Hi, South to West. Thanks for being here. Let me know if you have any specific questions about Kettlebell Sport. We're going to start in just a minute. Hi, MK. Thanks for joining. Just giving it a minute for people to hop on before we start our discussion on Kettlebell Sport. All right, I've decided we're gonna drop a goal in the chat to see if we can get this goal today. If we get 5 yellow super chats, so it's $10 or higher, I will do a live Kettlebell Sport workout where you can follow along with me. So if you're interested in me hosting a live Kettlebell Sport workout, then be sure to drop a super chat, yellow or higher, in the chat if I can get this goal to actually go. MK Southwest, let me know if you guys have any questions before we get started. I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about my experience with Kettlebell Sport, and then I'll take your questions and kind of answer some of the most frequently asked questions about Kettlebell Sport training. And of course, as always, if you have questions about other topics, you're welcome to drop them in the live as well, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Okay, I'm going to try one more time to get this to work over here, and otherwise we're going to get started. All right, we got our goal in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to get started by just talking a little bit about my experience with Kettlebell Sport. So as you guys may or may not know, I competed for about, let's see, I started in 2011. I started competing in Kettlebell Sport, and my last competition was in 2019. So I competed for about 8 years. Kettlebell Sport, for those of you who don't know, it's an endurance style of training with kettlebells where in the competitions, you're doing a 10-minute set traditionally and trying to complete as many repetitions as possible. So whatever weight you're using, you have to be strong enough for that weight to be something you can go for endurance with. So I competed in that sport for about 8 years. Kettlebell Sport for women used to only lift one kettlebell, okay? And they would switch hands halfway through, versus the men would lift 2 kettlebells for jerks and long cycle. I'll tell you a little bit more about what that is later if you don't know. And then they would snatch with 1 kettlebell, but the women were only doing jerks and long cycle with 1 kettlebell. After I had been competing for about 4 years, that started to change. Women started wanting to compete with 2 kettlebells. So in 2015, competition started offering double kettlebell lifts for women. So myself and a handful of other talented women from across the world were some of the first women to compete with double kettlebells in jerks and long cycle. So I ended up winning the World Championship for the WAKSC. It's a specific kettlebell sport organization in, I'm going to get the year wrong, probably 2017. With double 24 kg kettlebells, long cycles. So that's clean into the rack position and jerk overhead. So it's 10 minutes, as many repetitions as you can. It was a pretty exciting event because that was the first year that women were lifting double kettlebells and lifting like that. There was a full flight of women, like 8 to 10 women that were lifting double 24 kilo kettlebells, which is considered the professional level for women. So it's very exciting, very cool, definitely one of the highlights of my kettlebell sport career. But during that time, I earned 7 Master of Sport titles. So a Master of Sport in kettlebell sport is kind of the equivalent of like a black belt in a martial art. So I have 7 different Master of Sport titles across different kettlebell sport events. And I think I have a few national records. I used to have some world records. I'm not sure. I think I have a few like world and American records still left. Many of them have been broken because women are continuing to raise the bar. So I competed in kettlebell sport. Absolutely loved it. Loved pushing myself. A really great supportive community. And it was something that really fueled my unhealthy obsession with exercise and overtraining. So at a certain point in time, kind of 2018, 2019, I decided to stop competing because it really was starting to beat up my body and I didn't want it to take such a toll that I was really in pain later on in my life. So I decided to stop competing, and occasionally I would train a little bit here and there doing kettlebell sport, but I eventually stopped doing the training altogether, and now I train a different way, the kettlebell solo style of training, which is not as intensive, not as competitive, and I just train to be healthy and fit. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about kettlebell sport. We get a question here. Saladin said, is that mainly endurance record or can it be weight too? Good question. So excellent question. With kettlebell sport, let me talk a little bit about how you compete in kettlebell sport. So in kettlebell sport, you have a weight class for your body weight. So you are competing against other people in that weight class, and then you're also using a specific kettlebell weight. So there's different weights for women. It starts at like 8 kilograms or about 18 pounds up to 24 kilograms, about 53 pounds. That's the professional level, and you can compete with weights 4 kg between that. So like 8 kg, 12 kg, 16 kg, 20 kg, and 24 kg. So you're competing against somebody who's using the same size kettlebell weights and who's in the same body weight class as you are. And then the goal is to get as many repetitions as possible. So while you do need strength for it, it is an endurance sport, which is different from any other style of competitive weightlifting out there, like powerlifting and Olympic lifting. You're going for maximal weight for 1 rep. So kettlebell sport is maybe kind of in between that and CrossFit, right? So CrossFit is also kind of like you're pushing your limits with kind of your conditioning, your endurance, although they also have times where they're trying to lift as heavy as possible. And kettlebell sport is not about lifting as heavy as possible. It is a power endurance or strength endurance sport. Yes, 53 pounds, my goodness. When I use the 53-pound kettlebell now for just regular strength work, I think, my God, how did I lift 2 53-pound kettlebells for 10 minutes? It was pretty intense. I didn't do it for a super long time. I trained with, double 20 and 24 kgs for about 2 years. And then it just like, it became too much with all the other overtraining I had been doing over the years. So, let's see, what else can I tell you about it? So a traditional kettlebell sport competition is a 10-minute set where you complete as many repetitions as possible. And there's 3 different events you can compete in. Long cycle, which is clean and jerk. Long cycle. Biathlon, biathlon is like a combo event. You do a 10-minute set of jerks from the rack to over your head using your legs. And then sometime later, somewhere between 1 to 3 hours later, you complete a 10-minute snatch set with 1 kettlebell that you have 5 minutes, about 5 minutes per side, or essentially 1-hand switch. And then the 3rd event you can compete in is snatch only. So you just use a single kettlebell and compete in the snatch only. So those are the traditional events: long cycle, biathlon, and snatch. That being said, there are other types of kettlebell sport competitions that have come up over the years. So there are a number of different organizations that run events. So many of them you have the option, in particular, usually the women have an option of lifting 1 kettlebell or 2 kettlebells for jerks or long cycle. And the men are typically always going to lift 2, but there's some competitions where the men also have the option to just lift 1. There's also some other styles of kettlebell sport competitions, like there's an organization that runs bolt competitions, as well as the pentathlon. If you guys want to know more about what those are, let me know in the chat and I can talk about that. There's also such a thing as a kettlebell sport half marathon and a kettlebell sport marathon. These have become bigger over the years. A half marathon is 30 minutes, as many repetitions as possible, but you can switch hands, but you can't set the kettlebell down. And then a marathon is 60 minutes, same thing. So you can switch hands as many times as you want, but you can't set the kettlebell down or your set is over. I think you actually don't even get a score if you don't complete the time. I do not understand Russian, no. The only thing I know is like, privet and davai, davai, davai. That's all I know. Mostly from spending time around Russian kettlebell sport athletes, but I don't know any. We had a question here, jerks, question mark. So I can show you real quick, the kettlebell sport lifts. So the first lift that I mentioned, I'm just going to show you with one kettlebell, but you can do these events with two kettlebells as well. So the first one is long cycle, clean, and jerk. Okay? So if you had two kettlebells, it'd be the same thing. I don't have two matching kettlebells upstairs in my living room right now, but it'd be the same thing just with two kettlebells. Okay? Jerks is just the top portion of that movement. Okay? Here, where you use your legs to drive the kettlebell up over your head, and then there is snatch, okay, which is almost always with a single kettlebell. There's some types of kettlebell competitions where you do a double snatch or a double half snatch where you drop the kettlebell down to the rack position, but it is definitely a riskier lift and it's not very common. The bearded nurse said, what's the optimum rep range for these? Well, it depends. So in kettlebell sport training, it's an endurance style of training. So in a 10-minute set with long cycle, you might be doing anywhere between, 40 to 100 reps, clean and jerk. For jerks, you'd be doing anywhere from like 80 to 160 on the high end. For snatches, again, anywhere between like 80 and 200. And that's specifically for a competition where you're trying to do as many as possible. You can get benefit from doing these exercises with fewer reps. It really depends on what your goal is. But you could do anywhere between 5 to 20 rep sets or 5 to 20 reps and do a few sets and get good benefit from it and get some conditioning and cardiovascular effect. You're welcome. Okay, let's see what else I can tell you about here. So, as far as the non-traditional kettlebell sport competitions, so some of these are actually a lot more accessible to beginners. So a traditional kettlebell sport competition, like I said, 10 minutes where you don't set the kettlebells down, or like a snatch set where you only have one hand switch. This requires a high degree of technique. So this is going to require you to be really efficient with your technique and have the skill set in order to be able to make it for the 10-minute set and complete that many reps. So it can take a long time of training before you're prepared for that. So there are some different techniques. There are some different competitions. The bulk competitions, you have options of single and double bell for both men and women, and you can compete in all events, which is kind of, I think it's called like what is it called? There's like a name for it when you do all of them. Sorry, gotta block the people who are distracting. No, we're gonna block you. Okay, getting off topic with these strange messages. Okay, so for a bulk competition, you can compete in single or double long cycle, single or double jerk, single or double snatch, single or double long cycle, single or double jerk, single or double snatch. And you could potentially compete in all of them, but with both competitions, you can do either 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you can set the bells down. It's just about doing as many reps as you can. So you don't have to have as high of a degree of skill or technique or efficiency to do a bolt competition. Yes, Adam brings up the pentathlon. The pentathlon is another one that I might have to look up the events because I always forget exactly what they are. This is really common in the UK. So for anybody who's in the UK that's interested in kettlebell training, this is a great beginner-friendly way to get started, and that's why it was actually created, was to help beginners get started with competitions in a way that was a little less intimidating than having to have the technique. Perfect, the bearded nurse said that's me. So for the pentathlon, and I can drop this link in the chat if you guys want to look at it more specifically if you're interested. There are 5 disciplines that are completed in the pentathlon. So there is cleans, there is a long cycle press, so it's a clean and then a press instead of a clean and jerk. Then there's a jerk, then there's a half snatch, which again is snatching overhead, then bringing it down to the rack before you do your next snatch, and push press, with all these designed to be a little bit easier for beginners. Mario asked, is that CrossFit? No, it's not CrossFit. This is actually, I'm talking about a kettlebell pentathlon event. So this is separate from CrossFit. I don't know of any CrossFits that do this. So each of those 5 events, pentathlon 5, each discipline is carried out for 6 minutes, and you can switch hands as many times as you want. Hi, Extinct FW. Hello. Multiple hand changes. Hi, Tricolor from Ecuador. Thanks for joining us. Multiple hand changes are allowed in the pentathlon, and there's a 5-minute break after each event. So for example, you're going to do cleans for 6 minutes. You can switch hands as many times as you want. You're trying to get as many reps as possible. Then you have a 5-minute break. Then you have long cycle press. You want trying to do as many reps as possible. You can switch how many times you want. 5-minute break, etc. So it is still like a quite challenging physical endeavor. I believe you can also set the kettlebell down and rest if you want. It just will, you'll get a lower score, but I'm pretty sure you can. Don't quote me on that. You have to look into it a little further. There is a maximum rep count for each discipline there. So they want to make sure you're not going so fast that like you're not fully completing the rep. So there's like a max amount of reps you can do to ensure proper form. So for example, for cleans, 120 reps. So if you can do more than 120 reps with a weight, it means you should probably go up to the next weight. You also don't have to use the same weight for each event, and then your score is calculated as a combination of the reps you did and the weight you did and summing up all those different events. So a little confusing in terms of scoring, but like you don't have to do the scoring, you just compete in the events. And if you are in the UK and you're interested in that, there is a great group on Facebook. I think it's called the Grassroots League, and they do different beginner events. So that's a great resource to check out if you are in the UK. So that's the pentathlon. Let me know if you have any questions about that. As I mentioned, there's half marathons and marathons. There is a whole organization dedicated to doing events for that. I believe they now have World Championships specific for marathon and half marathon. I've competed in a half marathon once. That's one of my Master of Sport ranks. Oh, there's a Brittany here who spells her name like me. Hi, thanks for joining. 30 minutes is a long time. I don't know about I've done an hour before as well, but never really like trying to do as many reps as possible. The bearded nurse said kettlebell swings. What's your opinion on these for overall CVS and muscular hypertrophy? What do you mean by CVS? I'm not sure what the abbreviation is. Kettlebell swings, I think they're a great exercise. I think they are not a beginner exercise. I think if you do too many of them, they can make your lower back stiff. At least that's what happens to me at times. Okay, cardiovascular. Yeah, I think swings are excellent for your cardiovascular system. I think they can help with muscular hypertrophy. So I think kettlebell swings are great. I just think people sometimes try to do too many of them. Some people are like, oh, you should do 100 swings a day. You should do 10,000 swing challenge. In my personal experience for myself and clients, I don't think that's the healthiest way to use swings. I think it's probably too much volume, which is kind of ironic because I'm speaking about kettlebell sport, but I also think kettlebell sport is not optimal for health and longevity. I think you could incorporate it in a way that's can lead to health and longevity. I think competing in kettlebell sport isn't the best way to move towards health and longevity. As I don't think that any competitive sport, especially at a high level, maybe at the lower levels, it could absolutely help you with those goals. I think when you start pushing yourself to a higher level with heavier and heavier weights, then it becomes less about your health and longevity and more about performance, which to some degree you're sacrificing some of that health and longevity. Gabriel said, I want to commit to seriously training for a marathon, but I'm scared I'll lose muscle. Any suggestions? Gabriel, I'm assuming you mean like run a marathon, right? As opposed to a kettlebell sport marathon. Tricolor said, thoughts on Planet Fitness. I don't really have any thoughts on Planet Fitness. I don't think I've ever been in one. I've heard it's like a pretty inexpensive gym membership. Honestly, I don't know that much about it. You're welcome, the bearded nurse. Gabriel said yes, that you're talking about a running marathon. I mean, you likely, I don't know. I think it's hard not to lose muscle. It depends on how much muscle you have. I think it may be hard not to lose muscle while training for a marathon, but I think you need to make sure that you're eating plenty and eating plenty of protein, and that you still incorporate some level of strength training. So even if it's like once a week or once every other week, I think if you include strength training, you're much more likely to retain muscle. And, you know, with something like a marathon, again, I think it's something that's pretty extreme. So you're likely to, the goal of a marathon isn't to build muscle, really. The goal of a marathon is to gain the endurance for running. And in general, your body's going to be more efficient at running a marathon if it doesn't have a lot of muscle, because the more muscle you have, the more energy you need to power running. So marathon and building muscle are not really, those are kind of opposing goals. But again, if you do your best to eat protein and, you know, you incorporate some strength training, as long as it's not, you know, wearing you out too much, then I think, you know, it's possible to retain muscle. I know there's some people that do. Somebody said nice shoulders, boxer build. I don't know anything about boxing, but I do know about kettlebells, and that's where these shoulders come from. And push-ups, of course. Other questions about the pentathlon or kettlebell sport? Gabriel said, you're making too much sense and logic. Tell me what I want to hear, please and thank you. You came to the wrong channel if you want that, Gabriel. If you want someone to lie to you to make you feel good, you got to go somewhere else. I have been told I can be a bit blunt and direct. I do my best to speak the truth as I know it, and I don't think it's helping anybody to placate them. But I wish you the best of luck in preparing for a marathon and hope you really enjoy the process. Camille said, I can't be watching this at this time. I got to go to sleep. Go to sleep, Camille. Adam clapped. Adam likes the honesty is what I'm taking that clap as. Okay, so while we wait for some more questions, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, for those who are interested in kettlebell sport, how you can get started with kettlebell sport. As I mentioned, kettlebell sport is not what I do these days. I really enjoyed it while I was training for it, and for me it became like too extreme, the level I was pushing it at. But I think if you are really interested in kettlebell sport and you want to do it as a way to have a goal and to train, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I wouldn't try to discourage somebody of whatever their goal is. So if somebody's looking to get started with kettlebell sport, it's really important to make sure you have prerequisite mobility. You're going to want to make sure you have good overhead mobility. You're going to want to make sure that you have, you know, thoracic, you can extend your thoracic spine. You're going to want to make sure your back is pretty mobile. So it's important to have prerequisite mobility for many people, that especially on like a double jerk. I've seen it especially for guys that can be pretty tough. If you want to have more specific questions about that, let me know. You also need to have at least 1 or 2 light kettlebells to start with. So you got to start light in order to learn the technique. It's like anything. You got to walk before you can run. So you have to make sure that you learn the technique properly with a light kettlebell before you start lifting anything heavier. It's really crucial to learn safe and effective technique before you start training or even considering doing a kettlebell sport competition. Not just for performance, but safety. So either you're taking some kind of online course or watching some of my tutorials on YouTube, or you're working with a coach, the best thing is to work with somebody in person, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of volume. It's important to make sure that you are doing it right. Once the technique is there, maybe it's probably going to take at least several months to develop initially, like a basic technique, and it takes many years to master. Many of the complex kettlebell moves take a long time to refine and master. But after a few months of getting the basics down, you can start training. It's good to learn all the kettlebell sport lifts, so you're not just doing the same one over and over. Starting light is key, because even though your muscles adapt fairly quickly, your joints, tendons, and ligaments take longer to adapt. So if some of these exercises are new to you, you want to make sure you take your time when you're learning them and you don't jump up in weight. That comes later on. And because it is quite high volume, you want to make sure that you slowly build up to that volume, because it can be a lot on your nervous system. Even if you're lifting a light kettlebell, but you're doing it for quite a long time, it can be taxing on your nervous system, especially when you first start. Camille asked, do you stretch daily? I don't necessarily stretch daily. I think I probably end up doing at least some kind of stretch daily, even if it's just like stretching my calves, or like doing a downward dog, or doing a few stretches at the end of a workout. But I don't necessarily like, oh, I have to stretch daily. I don't. I find that also the training, I have pretty good mobility, so it's fairly easy for me to maintain, but the training that I do also helps support better range of motion, better mobility. Tricolor asked, kettlebell sport makes you stronger than bodybuilding lifter? I have no idea. I think it's totally a different type of strength. I think a bodybuilder would really struggle to do kettlebell sport, and a kettlebell sport lifter would struggle with bodybuilding. Although I would say there's probably more carryover from a kettlebell sport lifter to bodybuilding, because probably many of them have done some level of bodybuilding before. At least that's what I've seen. So bodybuilding is more about building hypertrophy, and kettlebell sport is about like strength endurance. So it's a different type of training. Kind of hard to compare. Youngblood said, hip hinging cardio is good, but kettlebells are just another tool. Yeah, I mean, kettlebells are just another weight, just like dumbbells, just like barbells. However, there are many exercises that you can do with a kettlebell that you cannot do with a dumbbell or barbell. Or maybe you could do it with a dumbbell, but it would be very uncomfortable or kind of risky for dropping it, because the handle doesn't, it's between the weights instead of on top. So you said it's all endurance. I would disagree. You can absolutely use them for strength. There's kettlebells that go up to 203 pounds. So you can use that for strength for plenty of things. The bearded nurse said, what's the best starting weight? Generally, I recommend people start with like a 4 to 8 kilogram kettlebell. Generally for guy, if you're a guy that has a significant amount of muscle, maybe an 8 to 12 kg kettlebell in order to learn your technique. Zhao said, do you like calisthenics? Yes, I do like calisthenics. David is curious whether his arm is as strong as mine. His 1 rep dumbbell curl is 40 pounds. What do I think? I don't know. I'm not sure. We'd have to try it and find out. I don't have a 40-pound dumbbell, so I can't try it. The bearded nurse said bodybuilders are not that flexible. No, they are not. So that would probably be tough for them to get 2 kettlebells overhead. Youngblood said grip strength. Yep. Grip strength. Kettlebells build a lot of grip strength. I just did a live on that on Tuesday. If you want to check that out, I talked about, not just kettlebells, but I talked about all the different ways I like to train grip strength. You can check that out if you go to my profile, hit the live tab, and then check out the Build a Stronger Grip live from a couple days ago. Adam said, comparison is the thief of joy. I found in fitness it's important to compete versus yourself. Absolutely, Adam. You're right. I think comparison is the thief of joy. It's part of why I used to be uber competitive, and everything was about being stronger and better than other people, and I realized that was really not serving me. Actually came from a lot of insecurity. So I would agree with you that I think not comparing and just focusing on ourselves and how we can be better is definitely a better way to go, especially for the spirit. Thinking again said 200 snatch challenge next. That's a tough one. You definitely got to be ready if you want to try to hit 200 snatches. You got to have your technique all dialed in. Tricolor said, will you join the army? No, definitely not. The bearded nurse said, dead hangs are great for grip strength and for spinal decompression too. Absolutely. That was one of the things I talked about in my grip strength live was hanging, different exercises while hanging, and including either on a bar or with rings. Absolutely great for decompression of the spine as well. David, I would ask you, why do you want to know? Okay, so another aspect of kettlebell sport training is setting realistic goals. So many people, when they get started with kettlebell sport, they look at kettlebell sport organizations that have ranking tables, and they kind of want to go by this ranking table. Like, oh, I could hit that rank, I could hit that rank. So in kettlebell sport, you can get different ranks from rank 3 all the way up to Master of Sport International class. So it goes rank 3 is the lowest, rank 2, rank 1, candidate for Master of Sport, Master of Sport, Master of Sport International class. And those ranks have to be hit with a particular weight kettlebell, and within your weight class, there's a certain number of reps that you have to hit. So the ranking table can be useful to give you some idea, but it's not a great way to base your training goals off of, especially not early on. It's best to focus on your technique, at least for several months, without focusing on specific numbers, because I think that takes your focus away from what's most important. Again, building solid, safe technique. And early on in training, it's more important to build up your endurance with the kettlebell up to 5 or 10 minutes or whatever you're planning to do in a competition, 6 minutes if it's a pentathlon. Then increasing your repetitions within that time frame with the same like light weight before increasing the kettlebell weight. So a lot of people want to jump up in weight fast, but it really serves you better to spend a lot of time on technique, spend a lot of time with a lightweight building your endurance, spend a lot of time with a lightweight building your volume within that time frame, building your capacity before increasing weight. In addition to, if you increase weight too fast while trying to do these long sets, it's a recipe for an overuse injury. So it's really important to make sure that you properly progress and safely progress. Tricolor just subscribed. Thank you, Tricolor. Appreciate it. Oh, we only have 30 seconds for our goal, you guys. We got a goal of 10 yellow supers, and I'll do a live kettlebell sport workout. So thinking again, if you want to do that 200 snatch challenge, well, we're probably going to miss out on this goal here. But we'll try a different one. Other questions? Youngblood said sets of kettlebell pull-ups and abs on repeat. That's a good way to go. I like it. Other questions that you guys have either about kettlebell sport, kettlebells in general, training in general, or I am taking requests today for next week's YouTube Lives. If you guys have specific topics you'd like to see me cover, whether it's a type of workout you want to follow along with me or a certain topic you want to do a Q&A on, I love to hear what you guys are interested in. I have a running list of topics that people want to see. Southwest said, do you have any trophies or awards you can show us? That's a good question. I'm sure I have my Master of Sports certificate somewhere, but it's like in a box in my closet. So I honestly have not kept most of my medals and trophies from Kettlebell Sport after multiple moves. And it's just like, I don't want to carry this stuff around. So no, I don't. Let's see. Let's pull up our request list. I've done a lot of these topics that you guys have requested. You can cross grip strength off. We haven't done the kettlebell solo flow or kettlebell flow. You guys can let me know if you're interested in kettlebell flow. I know that a lot of people are interested in that. I don't do it a lot myself, but I can. And if people are interested, we can discuss it. The bearded nurse asked, goblet squats for legs. Yeah, goblet squats are great for legs. They're also great for your arms and your core. You're welcome, Adam. Thank you for joining in. Talk to you later. Have a good day. Yeah, goblet squats. Goblet squats are also great for your core. I did like a kettlebell core workout. Oh, that was yesterday. Yeah, I did like a workout for your core with kettlebells, and a heavy goblet squat was one of them because when you load up the weight, it's absolutely going to place more demand on your core. In addition to your arms, if you go real heavy on a goblet squat, for me at least, my arms are usually what's going to fail before my legs. So that is the kind of the limiting factor for a kettlebell goblet squat would be the strength of your arms and your core to hold that kettlebell up more so than your legs. You're going to be able to lift more with the legs. Tricolor said, should I be a doctor or physical therapist? Not sure what to do after college. That's a good question. I would say pray about it and take one step at a time and see what feels right. Maybe take a step in a direction, and if it doesn't feel right, back up and try a different one. If it feels good, maybe keep going. I'm sure you will figure it out. That's just how everybody feels, either when they're going into college or leaving college. No one knows. And actually, that's how a lot of us feel our entire life. You don't really know like what your life is about or what you're doing with your life. David asks, is a kettlebell better for grip strength than a dumbbell? Not necessarily, but I think there's some exercises with kettlebell that are much easier to do with the kettlebell that are great for building your grip strength that are not so easy to do with a dumbbell. So I think you can absolutely build your grip with both of them. You don't need to have a kettlebell to build your grip strength. And I don't know if I would say it's better, but I think there's a more diverse range of exercises to train your grip strength that you can do with a kettlebell as opposed to a dumbbell. But I like dumbbells too. I think, if you can have multiple fitness tools, have multiple. I got a stall bar over here. I got dumbbells, not a lot of dumbbells, but a few dumbbells, a ton of kettlebells, yoga bolsters, parallettes, yoga blocks, foam roller. We got a lot of things. Hi, Cranston. Thanks for joining. All right, so what do you guys want to see me talk about live next week? What kind of workouts do you want to see? What kind of topics you guys want to talk about? Curious to hear what your requests are. Yeah, thinking again said Senya says she does barbell finger rolls for grip. Yep. I actually talked about that a little bit on my grip live because I remember watching her do those. I was trying to do it with a dumbbell, but it didn't work super well. It definitely works better with a barbell. David asked, finger strength, or is it just the same as grip strength? I think there's a bit of a difference. They're connected, right? So your grip, like squeezing your hand, has to do with your finger strength, your hand strength, and your like forearm, and really your entire arm is involved. If you grip hard, your whole arm is working, right? So your finger strength is definitely related, but there's also just just your finger strength as well. So it's not exactly the same. But your grip strength includes the strength of your fingers. It's a good question. Fair question. Thanks for subscribing, The Bearded Nurse, and thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Other questions that you guys have for me? I think... last week there was people on here asking me Kettlebell Sport questions, so I thought, okay, we'll do a Kettlebell Sport Q&A this day. But I don't think those same people showed up. But that's okay. Maybe they'll watch the replay and get some of their questions answered. Otherwise, in the meantime, any other questions, doesn't have to be on Kettlebell Sport, could be on anything. Drop them in the chat. Also, no one has any topic requests for next week. I'm just gonna choose them all from now on. What I want to do is I want to do a series. But I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do it on. like either a series of workouts or a series of tutorials. I think that would be fun. Oh, and of course, I got to remind you guys of the kettlebell challenge I have coming up. It's actually starting on Monday, so we're only a few days away from our challenge starting. It's called the 15-day Fit in 15 Kettlebell Challenge. Really just call it like the Fit in 15 Challenge, Fit in 15 Kettlebell Challenge. It's 15 days, March 10th through 24th, of 15 minutes of a daily 15-minute kettlebell workout. So you only need like a light to moderate weight. These workouts are going to challenge you, but they're not going to be so difficult that it's going to leave you feeling really sore. So it's a great way to build consistency over the 15 days, just showing you how to build a consistent routine that doesn't wear you out, but helps you to make progress. Because I really want people to see that you don't have to do a ton of time in order to get the benefits of strength training. So even just 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day even, but we're going to do 15 minutes a day this time, can really help. And this challenge is free. Hopefully you guys are all going to join us. The only thing you need to do is you need to sign up put your email in so that you'll get the daily emails sending you the workouts. I'll drop that link in the chat. Would love to have you guys join. I think we have, I can check and see how many people we have. South to West gave me a suggestion here, workouts for people in their 40s. I like it. South to West, are you going to be joining for the Kettlebell Challenge? I'm curious to know. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. 40's not quite young, but not quite old. I'm not 40 yet, so I'll be making it up. All right, we got 105 people signed up for this challenge. I'm pretty stoked about that because I think yesterday when I checked, it was like 60. So this is awesome. I love to see this. Or am I looking at the wrong one? I might be looking at the wrong one. Oh, I was looking at the wrong one. We're at 69 people. Okay. Well, still good. We still got 9 people that signed up since yesterday. But hopefully we can get that to 100 by Monday. We shall see. Okay, I'm going to add that topic request to the list. Workouts for people in their 40s. Does that mean that you're in your 40s, Southwest, or are you just saying that because you think it's a good topic? You don't have to disclose if you don't want to. You could just ignore my question. Any other, Southwest said yes to both. Good answer, good answer. Any other questions or requests you guys have before we drop off of today's live? David said, I saw your grip strength video. Your grip strength is insane. Thank you. It's probably not as good as I used to be when I was doing a lot of ring training, but I've maintained a fair bit because of kettlebell solo. There's a lot of like around the body handoffs and switching hands and stuff like that, and I feel like it's really helped my grip strength. Christopher Robbins said, best for abs. If you want to know what's a great way to train your, in general, you could specifically target your abs, but usually I would encourage you to train your core as a whole. It's going to be more functional. So that would be your abs, you know, your obliques and your lats and your back. You're essentially your trunk. In which case, I'm going to send you to my kettlebell core workout that I did yesterday, which is going to show you all the different kettlebell exercises that you can do, or many of my favorite kettlebell exercises to strengthen your core as a whole. I also really enjoy like hollow hold type exercises. Hollow position, great way to train your abs specifically. Christopher Robin responded, said, I do sit-ups but not seeing results. So let me ask you, Christopher, what results are you looking for before I answer that? David said, my grip is super weak. It's so hard to hold the kettlebell vertical. That requires super grip. Do you mean the bottoms up? The bottoms up press where the kettlebell's like upside down? Because that's a tough one. I've had a lot of practice with that over the years. So if it feels really difficult at first, it takes a lot of practice. Yeah, he's talking about, in case you guys missed it, he's talking about the bottoms up, like a bottoms up hold or a bottoms up press. Okay, this is a pretty light kettlebell. It doesn't look light, but it's pretty light. It's only 18 pounds. Okay, this is definitely an exercise that takes practice, and I'm definitely stronger on my right than I am on my left, that's for sure. Yeah, I would say, you know, if Christopher, you're not seeing results in terms of the definition in your abs, I would say you definitely want to take a look at your nutrition. It's going to be the number one thing, because you could have muscles in your abs, but they're perhaps not showing. Maybe you need to reduce body fat a little bit in order to get more of the muscle to show. David, it does require technique. So one simple tip is if you grip the kettlebell handle closer to your body in the corner, it's going to make it easier because you have better control of the handle. The further you go this way, it's going to get harder. It's going to get harder to balance that kettlebell. So one tip is here, and you want to make sure that you spot yourself when you're first starting, because you could easily drop the kettlebell towards your face. So make sure that you are taking care of yourself and spotting yourself. Southwest said, abs are made in the kitchen, or so I've heard. Yeah, I think there's the majority of it is nutrition. There's also a genetic component. And then, yeah, your abs have to be strong, but really it's, if you're doing some kind of strength training, your abs are being trained in every exercise you do. So you don't necessarily need really specific core work. You can do it. It can be helpful. It depends on where you're at in your level of core strength. But you don't necessarily need to do a ton of ab-specific exercises to get a strong trunk. You're welcome, David. Yeah, you should definitely be cautious and start very light. And like I said, spot yourself or have somebody else help you and spot you. You may just want to start, if you want to do it, you could just start by learning how to balance it here. Don't worry about pressing it. Just balance it here, and you could spot yourself like this and just get good at that. Get really comfortable with doing, 15, 20, 30 seconds on each arm of just balancing it here. If you can't balance it here, you most certainly don't want to try a press overhead. You want to make sure that you get confident there first. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and log off. Looks like our questions are slowing down, but I appreciate you joining me today. If you have any other requests for future lives, you can always comment them on any of my videos. And I would hope that all of you are going to join for the Fit in 15 Kettlebell Challenge. You can also find, if you go to any of my recent shorts, if you want to join the challenge, just comment challenge, and I will send you the link to sign up. So thank you guys for joining, and I will see you at the next one.